Welcome back, Particle People. We are in Once Human once more discussing the brand new scenario that we now have access to, although I'm not going to go into such a deep dive as, well, you'll find out why. This new scenario is the way of winter. Essentially, the world is both extremely cold in some places and extremely hot in others. Manage your temperature or you will die. When you begin this scenario, you're going to be finding Mitsuko in her little safe haven, and she's afraid because there's a man outside, and this man happens to be incredibly hot. But only in temperature, as this guy is kind of a wet noodle giving you a bad guy monologue for absolutely no reason. He can't yet find Mitsuko, but he wants to in order to kill her or something, I guess. So this guy showed up to tell you his evil plan before it was even a problem for her, and could have had the element of surprise, but instead decided to announce it for some stupid reason. As the Incredible said, stop monologuing. This actually isn't even him. This is a projection of him, here to goad the Mayfly to come to his realm to try to stop him so he can just kill you and get you out of the way. Once again, I have to ask, why is Once Human really bad at writing villains? When you do take his stupid little request to go to his universe that is ruined by both hot and cold, you'll find out that he was winning the war against the local faction. So much like a student who struggles with PEMDAS in order of events, he should have just won the war and then later found a way to get to his end goal of taking over the safe haven or whatever. But if they did that, then they wouldn't have a scenario for us to play with. So here we are, the Mayfly jumping into this brand new adventure to stop these hotheads in more ways than one. The first thing I noticed when entering the scenario is it's not as structured as the previous. This one kind of assumes you've already played the first scenario, so it's not new player friendly from my perspective. Just keep in mind the info dumps that you have during the first scenario with the massive tutorials and the constant pop-up notes, and now imagine all of those things are now available at once, including tungsten ore, and not really explaining the weapon system super well. On top of that, they've added some beautiful creatures. I very much do like the buffalo and the reindeer. However, they do drop different types of hide, which have different uses now too, so the previous complex systems are now even more complex. And on top of all of that, you base stay warm, because if your temperature starts to drop and you get hypothermia, you'll be dead before you realize it. In fact, I'm an idiot. Like, I didn't want to build the gear they tell me to. I wanted to build my good gear from the previous scenario, so I kept dying because apparently my gear has absolutely no thermal benefit, and I'm to blame for that one, but I like my gear, man. So you're not going to run into your main NPC who's going to kind of give you your whole quest dialogue as quickly. You're going to have to do some minor tasks like, collecting some of these leathers, building this giant rock that helps keep you warm, and then eventually V will tell you to go somewhere else. Well, you are told to go somewhere else, you're going to be led to a camp where you find the leader of a militia, and she's currently having an issue with the main bad guy that you did, although she does not believe that you flew here on a bird. She informs you, as I did earlier, that she is struggling in this war against the hotheads, and she needs your help to turn the tides of battle, but she doesn't fully trust you yet because you came out of absolutely nowhere, so go and run some errands for her. And this is about where I stopped playing, not because I wanted to, but because I had to. And that's not to say that this isn't shaping up to be a fun expansion, although maybe a little bit makeshift, especially considering some things are just way too big for the world, like these gigantic ladders. Not sure why these are jumbo-sized ladders out of nowhere, but the lag is just absolutely terrible. And I understand Once Human's dilemma here is because people will drop off later on. In fact, next week I guarantee I'll be able to play this no problem as people have gotten their fill. However, right now, with everybody logging in at the same time, there is very little you can do that's not annoying or tedious. Obviously, I'm trying to create content around this game, so I thought getting into the first server as quickly as possible to start recording would be a good idea. However, I did not learn from my previous issue with the Prismverse scenario, and everything is just barren. There are bases everywhere, campsites everywhere. It's really hard to go somewhere without stuttering and lag. NPCs will sit there with only one asset loading for a while, your character will glitch out. It is just a bit too much to bear if you're trying to have a fun experience. And I'm not even blaming the Once Human's team here, it's just to say, how do you have servers that are strong enough to support this massive influx of players at the beginning of a scenario, as well as not be too costly for running the servers when there's less people on it? It's a logistical nightmare, and I do not envy their position. However, they will need to overcompensate if they want to overcome this issue. With the original server's hard mode, with Prismverse, and now the winter scenario, this has happened every single time. We get an influx of players, the servers cannot handle it, there's not enough to do for everyone in these small areas. You kinda gotta double down here, Once Human. This issue will resolve itself as the server population drops over time naturally. However, the beginning week or so is one of the most impactful times for any game. It's just really sad to have to deal with all of these unpolished bits because of the lack of server strength. However, if you look a little bit closer at a few decisions they made, you'll notice they did actually try to compensate for this high player density by using little realms, little dungeons if you will. One of the earliest missions you get will launch you into a dungeon. This one's going to be just you or whatever party you might be in, which means that you're going to be separated from the rest of the world and give you a much better, much cleaner experience. And I did notice that once I was finally able to load in and stop doing the running man pose, it did actually improve in performance. With this in mind, I saw a level 30 silo nearby, and I figured I could get a lot of things that I wanted all at once. I could get incredible difficulty by comparing comparison to my character, as I am level 8 and I only have my basic level gear. And then I could also be in a scenario where I wouldn't be as affected by the world's lag, and I have to say, yes, that is actually a wonderful solution. I have played this silo a few times now because it's just a really good time. I get the difficulty, monsters aren't too squishy, there's a ton of monsters inside of this silo. Wonderful time. I'm not super stoked the fact that most of these assets are just recycled from the previous scenarios. This is a copy-paste version of a Rosetta silo you had to do in the previous expansion. However, this one is just filled with monsters instead of Rosetta. I mean, it's fine enough, I guess. I would expect with the amount of time they've been cooking on this to have a little bit more unique assets in the dungeon department, but maybe there will be more to come down the line. Luckily enough, they did actually do one of the things I was hoping for, which is add brand new weapons and gear. I have to say, the fire shotgun looks incredibly tantalizing to me, and I may build it somewhere down the line, although I do not have the amount of star crom to make it worth it yet. It is good to see that they're going to continue to branch out with new weapons, as the other ones were fairly well documented. It'll be cool to see what these things can do. They also have added a few more deviations, and while I'm surprised they only added like a handful, they definitely could have added more. A lot of these deviations are a very high quality, and I love what they're doing with it. The fish, oh my god, the fish. But personally, I love the camera the most. I can't wait to find that deviation and maybe get a shiny of it if they ever add it. And I know I'm pissing and moaning and crying about a free game, but did you notice they added yet another loot chest? Another loot crate here that has absurdist prices, and somehow they haven't worked out ladder size? It just feels a little bit weird that you can constantly add high quality cosmetics, but the world itself is falling apart. I definitely think your priorities are showing. I mean, think about it. You can look like a space ninja with a taser wand, however, this bridge eternally looks like it's straight out of the N64. In fact, if I zoomed out on it, I'm pretty sure you wouldn't know that this was a bridge. This is just some brownish thing inside of a game which otherwise has polished graphics. I will be checking back in on this new scenario next week, but for right now, it's definitely not worth the time investment, at least for me. That's not to say that you won't have fun here, especially if you can put up with the lag, or maybe it will desist in the next few days. However, it definitely doesn't have the same wow factor that the initial scenario did. I can't wait for the lag to break down a little bit, that way I can at least experience some of these new bosses, or maybe find a silo that isn't a carbon copy of one that I've already done, maybe even find some new deviations along the way. But have you played this expansion, and if so, can you tell me what you think about it? Are you having as bad of a lag issue as I am? Because I've been testing my internet every day. I have a stellar connection, but the servers seem to be the problem. Do you think that this expansion holds up to the same quality of the first one we got? And are you planning on playing into the foreseeable future, or are you starting to lose interest in Once Human? That and anything else below, please leave in the comments, as I'm always interested to hear what you have to say. As always, this has been Sam for Days. I am Course. I get everywhere. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye now.